My parents pressured me to forgive my cheating fiancé, so I exposed my dad's affair, leading my mom to leave him after 30 years. In July, I was to get married. When I returned home from a business trip 2 months ago, I discovered my ex-fiancé having an affair with the sister of my closest friend. I threw him out, called off the wedding, and threatened to throw away his belongings if he didn't show up to pick them all up. A few weeks later, I pawned the ring, sold or donated everything he gave me, and placed everything he left on the curb with a free sign. I blocked him everywhere. I called the police on him when he came hammering at my door after I had taken away his belongings. I contacted them once again after he showed up at my place of employment and made a scene. I also called the police on his family when they gathered in large numbers to argue his case. I didn't go all out for my ex or the sister of my former best buddy. I told her spouse that I had seen her having an affair with my former partner. The last I heard, she had returned to living with her parents after being evicted from the residence. My former best friend made an effort to persuade me to give them both an opportunity to clarify what? No. She then accused me of being cold-hearted and petty, accusing me of destroying her sister's relationship. Therefore, I also kicked her out. I don't want to be around dishonest people who don't care about betrayal. Without a doubt, this incident festered inside of me until I let go of my parents. Perhaps that's why I was so hard on them when it persisted. I brought a date to supper with my parents last week in the hopes that his presence would prevent them from bringing up my failed engagement. I had been under pressure from my parents to reconcile with my ex. He's really sorry. Give him 5 minutes to explain himself. You owe him that. He didn't care about her. He was wrong. You're being unkind by excluding him in this way. How could you report him to the police? How could you treat his family the same way? His parents deserve no such humiliation. They are decent folks. He's struggling right now. He is depressed. Everyone is concerned for him. You have his own undying love. He has come to his senses. It's time to mature and extend forgiveness to him. No, they continued to bring it up despite my date's presence. When my ex jammed his dick into anything that moves as he does, I lost my temper and asked my father if he expected me to put up with it. I questioned my mother about her experience of ignoring her husband's adultery. How does she maintain her composure when dining with women who have had sexual relations with her husband for years? Does she want my sister and I to have that kind of life and that kind of man for her daughters? I inquired as to whether they were aware of the influence that knowledge had on my siblings and me as we grew up. Being aware that Dad was sabotaging his secretary, which is why he was late coming home from work. Being aware that a work weekend was a code word for a dirty weekend spent with a non-mom. Did they not understand that I am the only one of their 4 children who still communicates with them? Do they not wonder why they were left off of my brother's wedding invitations? Why haven't they met the wives or kids of either of my brothers? Do they believe that my sister is simply being dramatic and having a tantrum because she is silent, really? In addition to congratulating them on the death of their last surviving kid, I got up from the table and said I hoped their conceit, willful ignorance, and suffering would ease their final moments. I left my date after that. Instead of using him as a FU to my parents, I ought to have saved him for a special evening. He drove me to the closest pub, let me on his shoulder as I got totally wasted, and then made sure I made it home without incident. He messaged me the next day to check on me and even delivered over a large Sprite, large fries, and a double cheeseburger via DoorDash. Although I haven't heard from my parents, I didn't block them. I've cooled down enough to feel regret after a week. Not because of what I said, but because I can still picture the expressions on their faces when I said my final goodbye. I damaged and devastated them, especially my mom. I adore my parents in spite of their flaws, and they are plenty. I feel a lot of remorse about hurting them, and I don't like knowing it. Edit 1. Although I haven't read every remark yet, I believe that some information has to be made clear. My date was aware that we would be dining with my folks when he invited me out that morning. I told him what I had planned for the evening and asked him if he wanted to go. I was surprised when he said yes. When he did, I told him that I wasn't being serious and that it would likely make him feel a bit uneasy. He simply chuckled and offered to pay bail if necessary. There you have it. He knew there would be drama in that restaurant. Edit 2. I have other folks in my life besides the ones I named in my post. My siblings are with me. They didn't interrupt me. Just a few days after I found out about the adultery, my sister flew in to be with me. I also had amazing friends who helped me move my ex's belongings to the curb, pack up my belongings, and even find me a person who paid a reasonable amount for the engagement ring. I only brought up my ex best friend, etc., because of their actions and words which helped all those long suppressed emotions to surface when and how they did. Responses from the OP in the comments. Ex's parents being on the outskirts of my parents' social circle. My ex's parents are undoubtedly aware of my father's numerous infidelity scandals. They must have expected me to endure the same level of contempt my mother has shown me over the years. Commenter, you dislike your parents' choices even though you love them. Considering what you've told us about your early years and their current actions, it makes perfect sense. How can they continue to be a non-toxic part of your life? Consider that. What do you want them to accomplish? What would be the absolute minimum and what would be ideal? OP, although it would be ideal, my mother will never abandon my father and take him for granted. My father using discretion is another thing that will never occur. Knowing that their needs and wants would always come before everyone else's. Do they really care about the humiliation they've inflicted on us? I don't think I should hold my breath for it, but I would be content with an acknowledgement of the hurt we've experienced over the majority of our lives. Commenter, is it possible that your ex believed there would be no repercussions for him either, given that your mother finds nothing wrong with her partner cheating? OP, I understand why people could believe that. My sister was the only person I discussed it with when it came up. We were both intoxicated and high. Naturally, people would assume that I was okay with things the way they were. How could they be supposed to know that I wasn't comfortable with it when no one asked? I can appreciate that viewpoint. As of September 29th, 2024, I haven't been here for a minute. Work and life have been hectic, so I haven't had time to update Reddit. We apologize to everyone who kept contacting us to request an update. Better late than never, I reason. In summary, when my parents pushed me to forgive and make amends with my unfaithful ex, I became angry with them. At that moment, I told them some really tough and painful facts. Then, I felt a great deal of shame. The remorse began to consume me. I want to start by saying thank you to everyone who left a comment on my post. Even though I did publish for approval, getting comments from the majority of you did ease the burden a little. I made an effort to read every comment. Even though my timing was poor, I was able to recognize that what I said was extremely vital, even though it didn't remove the guilt I carried. We also appreciate everyone who chose to send private messages instead of posting on the main thread. Speaking with you and reading your personal accounts of comparable upbringings made it clearer to me that my adolescence and childhood had been painful and left scars that I hadn't yet healed. Another shout out goes out to the people who harassed me about my choices, preached about the sanctity of marriage, and the idea that men are simple beings with simple wants, and attempted to teach me how to be a woman, lean in and fulfill my responsibilities by letting a guy indulge in his vices. Not to mention the sweet little chicken nugget who told me my reaction was evidence that I'm a serial cheater and that my ex should have used a cattle prod on my happy place. I would especially want to thank the men who promised to train me to be obedient and know my place. When your wives went, it must have been difficult for you all. Bravo to those women for joining you and fleeing a life of pain. Now for the subsequent events. Shortly after my posting, perhaps a few weeks later, my mother left my father. One evening, she brought her bags to my apartment. She looked so broken and pathetic that I cannot describe it. My heart ached for her as I carried her inside and held her. It dawned on me then that she had no one to turn to. No one at all. No friends. No family. I can't help but wonder if Mom had been alone during her entire marriage, and whether she would have had the guts to leave my father at that point if one of us had spoken up sooner. My mother is typically very calm and elegant, so I had never seen her look so shattered. I was astonished to see her like that. I forced her to share my bed with me that night because I was so anxious. My siblings all arrived to offer their love and support within days after I phoned them. Before long, my sister mother and I were all sleeping in my bed. She was glad to see that her kids still cared because we did love her, and we cared. My siblings had distanced themselves from the problem. My mother initially stayed with me. She was struggling because she was carrying the burden of years of shame, guilt, and humiliation. I didn't want to leave her alone and was concerned about her mental health. I brought her to a shelter, and we got her a dog because I couldn't take time off work to spend all of my time with her. I reasoned that if she had something to do, it would divert her attention from her melancholy. She fell in love with a 5-year-old mixed breed, and he fell in love with her again. I had hoped for an active puppy to keep her occupied. He is an idiot. He managed to push his entire head between the spindles on the stairs, and we woke up to his howling one night. To get him out, we had to contact the fire department. My mother, who now calls him her baby, obviously didn't believe he was at blame. He loves her, and she loves him back. After making some adjustments, my eldest brother relocated her across the nation to live with him and his family. He believed that she would be better off living somewhere she wouldn't have to worry about running into her father or any of his numerous women. It appears to be helping that he was able to find her a therapist. According to all sources, she is an indulgent grandma who loves her role. She sees the grandchildren every day because she has a separate in-law suite. According to my brother, the children are typically located at grandma's when they go missing. My dad, on the other hand, is still my dad. He has plenty of company. He invited me to supper to introduce me to the new woman in his life shortly after my mother moved, since she had always referred to my mother as her best friend. I reminded them both that I knew exactly who she was. Another awkward dinner is about to happen. My dad made an effort to make it as amiable as possible, but every time she talked to me, I would recall an instance from my early years when she was around our family and inquire as to whether or not she was having an affair with my father at the time. He contacted me the following day to express his disappointment in me. It only seemed right that I disclose my own disappointments. He attempted to minimize what he had done over the years and even played the victim of his own acts. During our little argument, I ended up barring him and ending the chat abruptly. He arrived at my door a little more than a month ago. He must have been a little alarmed when I refused to let him in. He expressed his desire to keep me around. Whatever you think of him, he is my father, and I love him and don't want to lose him. he assured me that he would not have me engage with any of his women. We have had a few enjoyable and successful adventures thus far, and I'm cautiously optimistic that we can stay in each other's lives. As for me, I'm in treatment because I followed the advice several of you provided me. Realizing that you're not as good as you may believe is a humbling moment. Going through all that history and therapy has been nearly intolerable. After certain sessions, my only wish is to go to the closest bar and drink till I lose all memory of what I've just experienced. I'm using therapy to figure out where it all began and why I am who I am. One of the hardest things I've ever done, in my opinion, is therapy. I'm not sure why some of you do it so voluntarily or how you've done it for as long as you have. It is helping, even though I feel like a crazy nutter for listening to all of you nutters in the first place. The majority of you have been waiting for this update. The number of messages I've received from folks who want to know more about him is incalculable. You all seem to be saying, "Girl, just tell us about the date." We don't care about whatever crisis you're going through in your life. Since my piece was not about him, I have not responded to any of those questions. In a roundabout manner, though, I feel like I owe you all something, because you all contributed to our current situation. I will mention a few things, but I won't go into detail about everything that has transpired between us. After watching a podcast on YouTube, he got in touch with me and emailed me a link along with the question, "Is this you?" It would be an understatement to say that I was mortified. I was too embarrassed to respond to him. I didn't even read the messages he sent me over the following few weeks because I was so overcome with embarrassment. A ton of screenshots of people's remarks were there when I eventually got around to reading them. I doubt I need to explain what those comments said to you. After a while, I responded to him. As I previously stated, I have had a hectic personal and professional life, so it was challenging for us to find time to visit one another. He has a life and a job too. I didn't think we could develop a friendship, much less anything more, because we could only get together for coffee a few times. Since then, however, I've discovered that he is as relentless and tenacious as a hound with a bone. He persisted until we managed to schedule another date. After that successful date, there were others. He finally introduced me to his grandparents, who were the two most significant individuals in his life. I currently own a little flock of wooden birds that his grandfather carved. His grandmother feeds me whenever I visit her and typically sends food home with me because she believes I'm too thin. He is friendly with my brother and sister, and he even accompanied me to my mother's birthday celebration, where he got to know them all. He treated her with great grace. I had him stored in my phone as Cheeseburger for a time. When he objected, stating, "I bought you a double cheeseburger," I began referring to him as Double Cheese, which I ultimately abbreviated to DC. My phone still has him saved as Cheeseburger. I'm not sure how to handle the fact that he is an undercover Swiftie. I don't dislike Taylor Swift, but I didn't think he would like her. I'm okay with his using me as a front for his Swiftie inclinations, just as he did with his younger sister and niece. Reactions from the OP in the comments. Commenter, "This was an update. Now I hope the best for you. Request a duck to accompany the birds. Haha. I hope you have a happy life." OP, "He handed me a goose when I asked for an owl, LOL. Commenter, "Hearing that you're seeing the cheeseburger makes me very happy. I'm hoping that continues to go smoothly. I was expecting some news about the cheating ex, such as the fact that he's homeless and unemployed, LOL. OP, "He's not even a blip on my radar." Questioner, "Why do you even still love your dad, Ash? Are you in contact with him?" OP, "I cherish my father, just like I love my mother, despite her staying. It is possible to love someone and still detest what they do. I will never experience remorse for loving both of my parents. Down the thread. Commenter. In what way do you sidestep the query? Dad, do you love him? Do you adore your mom? OP. The things he subjected us to were abusive, and the things she made us stay through were equally abusive. In any case, I adore them. I will admit that I adore my folks. Sway, thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.